Welcome to the most dangerous planet.
I like that we still have Deck being this character that represents his culture.
He's this fucking honey badger where it's like he'll go take on anything. He doesn't give a shit.
We might not be alone in this hunt.
That's a Yautja thing where he's like, what do you mean? Like, we don't quit. We got to keep moving. Like,
we have to kill this thing. You know, that's why we're here. You know, what do you mean?
We're hunting. This is great. Well, good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our spoiler talk, review, discussion, whatever you want to call it, on Predator Badlands. Yes, a little bit of some discombobulation this week. You know, you had to just, if those of you who did watch the video, had to see me just kind of solo the spoiler-free review. Unfortunately, Luke had some parental obligations come up. Those damn kids getting in the way of Predator. I tell you what.
You know, I considered abandoning my child to go see Badlands, but
that's, you know, yeah.
I hear there's some consequences if I did that. So.
Yeah, that's. I heard that doesn't go so well myself, but yeah. With that said, we're gonna get into all the spoilery thoughts and details, but I want to give old Lukester here the floor because, again, our review spoiler free, my thoughts already up. So, Luke, this is the first time you've gotten to speak about the film on the channel since seeing it. So, sir, have at it.
No drum roll, I see. But you know, no secret. We were both really excited. We've talked about it extensively on the channel. We talked about it a lot on the Sunday Scaries. So I was highly anticipating this one. I knew we had talked about it several times. The scope here was going to be way bigger than what we had seen in previous films. It just felt a little bit different from the subject matter that we were going to tackle. And you certainly do feel that throughout the film. And I think there's some positives, there's some negatives to that. You know, I don't think I've connected in terms of the way that I have with previous films with Badlands in that way, just because it does feel quite bigger than what I'm used to. But I think I was excited for the story of Deck. I think they do deliver to an extent on what we get with the Predator lore. I love opening that up and getting to see that side of things. Everything didn't work for me, but it's maybe that human element when they say that there are no actual human beings in here. We still have a human aesthetic that's pretty heavily involved in, and I really wanted to see just the Predator lore. I know we're going to talk about favorite moments. One of my absolute favorite moments in this was Deck and his father at the very opening of this. It is so emotional and it carries so much weight. And even when we tie everything back around toward the end, those are my favorite moments in this. And that's where I really wanted to see this Badlands go. I think that's where it excels. So overall, I was pretty happy with it. I think I do have some critiques. And in terms of rewatchability, I think this one is going to be a real fun rewatch.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yep, definitely wasn't a dumpster fire for Luke. I know everybody was real worried about that one. It was certainly something that I was curious to see some of the elements, how they were going to perform for you. We'll get into that because I do think that it is something that's getting brought up quite a bit. It's kind of one of those you love it or you hate it. But Jake, you and I went to the big Cleveland critic screening. They took us to the big theater. They wined and dined us. They sat us in front of it's probably my favorite theater in the area. I think it's the most state of the art. And I had a fucking blast. I don't know about you, sir. How did you feel?
Well, because the studio paid me $5 billion to talk positively about this movie, I did like it quite a bit. No. Seriously, though, I really think they should change the title to Predator Wetlands because this one made my nipples wet.
Yes,
I really enjoyed this one. I will say my expectations were like way up here and maybe just ever so slightly here is where I was overall with the film. I think I totally agree with Luke in the sense that the Yautja stuff was excellent. I loved everything they did with the Predators, but maybe right in the middle, you had a little bit of like Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars style humor that just kind of, it feels out of place. Like I think I can vibe with that in a different sci-fi movie, but here I was hoping for something a little more hard boiled, like the very beginning and the very ending. Another just little nitpick, and I'm sure we'll dive more into this a little later on, is I kind of feel the third act is a little pastiche of both Aliens and Predator. How, if you're making this movie though, how do you not have elements of both of those flicks here? You know what I mean? I mean, it's being marketed as a Predator film, but realistically, this is kind of an AVP flick in a lot of ways. You have some elements from both franchises being utilized in really creative ways that I loved here. So it was really cool to kind of dive into the Predator and also the synthetics from Weyland Yutani a little bit as well, getting a different side of them. But I think overall, you know, there's problems with it that I'm sure we're going to get into, but as a whole, I really enjoyed this film. I think this is up there in terms of where I'm ranking Predator flicks for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, I got to say, like, for the most part, I am pretty bang on with you on that review there, Jake. I would say that I'm right in the same spot as both of you when it comes to my enjoyment of the kind of, I guess you'd call it Star Wars-y kind of humor. Cause like the way that I kind of look at this movie is like the very opening, like the first couple of seconds and few minutes feels very Dune-like.
Yeah.
In the sense of like the big scope, everything. I was like, oh wow, we're really going to get into some deep sci-fi here. But then you quickly see that we're going into more of the swashbuckling Jedi kind of like sword fighting stuff, which I think is a bit jarring. A little bit of like, okay, so this is more like what we're in line for. People who are afraid of the PG-13 being like a more, I guess, goofy, kind of funny, like dumbed down version of the Predator. I could see them being a little like, oh wow, what are we in for here? But I think it quickly bounces back, especially after we get to see them more. Like, I love the reveal of the brother with the cloak and realizing that that's such a important piece for Deck throughout this film to try to get it. But I love that. And then also, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the brother dynamic until I really got to see that, wow, they're actually treating the older brother as like a more mature, like parental figure who's not just like being a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, I expected him to be like, you are weak, I cannot wait for my dad to kill you, blah, all this stuff. But no, he's just like, he's like, look, we're going to figure it out. We'll get it. You know, it's like you're still growing, you're still doing it. He's not willing to just give up on his little brother because he's the runt, because he's, you know, malformed from what they said, which I also thought was a very interesting addition to this movie. But yeah, I think like as the movie goes on, once we start really getting the gang together, the Guardians of the Galaxy, as it's been coined here, because funny enough, Luke brought that up last night in our conversation over the phone. He said it feels very Guardians of the Galaxy at times. I totally also get the criticism for that. But like for me, I just think like if we're going to open this world, if we're going to use this film in the way that I think it is, where it's like trying to, I guess, satisfy both audiences, it's like you got to have some elements that I think are going to bring in broader audiences. And I think one of the safest ways to do that is just like make the characters as fun and relatable as possible. And I think that that's going to be kind of the crux that this movie lives or dies on for people, in my way. I think like it's either you're a hardcore Predator fan and you won't like this movie because it's not exactly that. It's not what you wanted as far as like the intimacy of the hunt and everything. But if you're a hardcore Predator fan who likes the Dark Horse comics or wants to see more of the world, I think that this movie definitely shows the potential. And I think that now, and I left this off in my review of just saying like, we need to go forward. We need to push really hard into, and we talked a little bit about it, Luke, a Yautja centric solo film, just a bunch of Yautjas dealing with a situation. Let's do it. I think we can do it. And I think this movie proves that.
I think it's when it's at its best, at least for my take, is like I said, that opening and that closing of when we're dealing with the family elements of the Yautjas and just the action and just being engrossed in that kind of culture. That's what I think a lot of people want to see. And I think Badlands is a great start to giving us a different feel than what we're used to. Like I said, the scope here is so much bigger than what we've tackled previously. And I think there could be a disconnect with Predator fans. There was certainly a disconnect for me in certain aspects. Is like when we go into that opening, when we have both Deck and his brother kind of jumping around fighting, I was like, this feels way too big for me. But then instantly we get into the father, Deck, and the brother dynamic, and that pulled me right back in. And Dylan, you were talking about kind of the emotion from the brother. I don't know the name, unfortunately.
It was
So
like Kawi or something, Kaiwa. I'm gonna see
Kui, I
if it's
think
in here.
maybe that could be fairly accurate. But I love, and it's a small moment, but it means so much. Is when he's talking to Deck about you're gonna go to Genna and you're gonna kill. It was the Kalisk, I believe.
Yeah, the Kalisk. And
And
real quick before that, when he tells him, "No, you're not going to do that." Like I'm like that's the shit I love about this is like that's why I think we need a Predator movie that can just be them because like you get that. He's like looking out for his little bro. He's like, "Fuck that. You're not going after that thing." Like
yeah, and the way like I love the portrayal of Deck at times where it's like he's this he's this fucking honey badger where it's like he'll go take on anything. He doesn't give a shit. And it's like I'm going to go get him, and like as he walks out of the ship and the father's approaching, the look on Kawi's face of like it's just this absolute concern of like what's going to be happening to my brother. And it's like I love those elements to it. I think that really does work. And Dylan and I had talked about it yesterday where you get lost in I think feels Marvel, feels Star Wars-esque, where it just feels very big. It's CGI at times that don't work for me. And I think maybe one of my bigger criticisms of the film is that looking at Predators from 2010, where it has a big scope to a certain extent, it still feels grounded. And I think, to kind of not lean so much on CGI maybe and kind of have a more grounded battle between some Yautjas, other creatures. I know it's unavoidable to an extent when you have the Kalisk out there. You're not really going to do that practically, but when you have a more grounded feel to certain aspects of something like Predators of 2010, I think maybe that dynamic for me would have worked a little bit better if we wouldn't have leaned so much into that Star Wars Marvel feel of those battles.
I really think, yeah, that was maybe a wrong turn with this particular entry, because I am 100% sold, like you said, Dylan, on doing a movie with just the Predators. Like you could totally do that. And the biggest thing about that is when we're hanging out with all the other characters, especially like Elle Fanning, and this really, I hate to say this, but like she's just a little too goofy. I said in my review, I'm like, it's almost like, Krusty Krab pizza, SpongeBob and Squidward relationship at a certain point. And I'm just like, that's really out of place with this film. I really did like this one, and I'm going to give it a lot of praise, but I do want the movie where it's super serious. It's about that like intimacy of the hunt, like you're talking about. I really want to see that because, man, the best parts of this movie by far are the very beginning and the very ending. Kind of the misdirection of you're thinking this is going to be all about him taking down this gigantic, unkillable beast somehow, some way, but then really, the beast is his father that he ends up kind of taking down. That's what this whole movie ends up being about in a lot of ways. I love that. That's the best part of this whole thing, and I think that's what really sells it. Is it understandable because of the PG-13? Yes. I get that. I get wanting to relate to a wider audience, and I think that was something that is going to make sure that this movie is a box office success so that Dan can do his next big thing he's been talking about. I'm excited to see if Dutch and some of our other, killer of killers decide to show up.
Confirmed to show up. I'm curious to know, it's like, is that going to be live action or is that going to be animation? And personally, I think for the returning the older characters that aren't Naru right now, like Dutch, and I prefer animation, I think.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
I don't know if I need to, because I just get like, no offense to Danny Glover, just because like he's, I haven't seen him in anything like returning character wise, but like I'm just gonna think of the Terminator, the last like decade we had of Terminator movies. When I see Arnold with the gray and everything come back as Dutch, it's gonna be like, here we go. It's like I mean I trust that Dan Trachtenberg can do pretty well with it, but it's also just one of those things for me. It does make me a little nervous. It does make me a little bit like, if we're gonna bring them into live action, I'm kind of like, I like the new characters. That's what I gotta say about the Alien and Predator franchise as a whole right now. I kind of love all the new characters we've met. Like I really love the Romulus team. I really love the obviously Deck and Naru and all these other people we've met. It's like I just kind of want to keep going with their story for a little bit before we dive back in. So
I definitely think we're seeing like Naru and all them. I think like my thoughts and theories, I don't mean to get too far into the future here, but
we're going to talk about it.
I think it's going to be like a Mortal Kombat tournament movie kind of thing. Like it's like you have all these like people who have killed predators before in the past and some new predators coming in to like all fight each other at different points in time. Killer of Killers established that like these characters can exist at any point in the future because they're frozen or whatever. So I could get into it personally. It might feel a little too Avengers, which is already kind of a problem I'm starting to notice in the series with Badlands. And I agree. I think I would almost want to see it animated because that would have to be a different beast. And you can make the characters look a certain way opposed to like, salt and pepper version of, some of these old heroes.
And I think like if we go to like what I think Luke was going to bring up here, he's already alluded to Predators. What if we had like Royce and Isabel come back?
Okay.
And like I think you could get Adrian Brody more on board to do voice acting rather than getting back on set for a Predator movie. Personally, I don't know how he feels about it. I wouldn't be ashamed because I think that this movie especially has this go around with Predators really just had so much love for 2010's Predators. Like suddenly everybody thinks that's the greatest movie ever. And I'm like, I remember you fucks. I remember many of you, not you guys, but I remember a lot of people on the internet land saying that movie sucked. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. But
it was awesome. The only thing I don't like about Predators is that one subplot with Eric Foreman or whatever. But outside of that, I think that whole movie is pretty solid. But no, all I'll say is just I am worried about the future. I agree. Badlands tells me though that they can do these bigger and more ambitious stories in this universe, and it can work. But just don't go into Avengers territory and try to make a big Endgame style movie with what we're talking about. If we're gonna bring back legacy characters, you run that risk of it just kind of feeling like, well, you're just putting a bunch of stars in a movie and expecting you're putting butts in seats. That's not what we want from Predator. We want something that is a little more thought provoking. That's what's so great about these kinds of aliens. They're not like xenomorphs. They're not animalistic. They have a code. They have a culture. That's what I want on full display with the Predator flick.
100%. Luke, your thoughts, future Predator franchise right now?
Just again, we're talking about Predators, but I will always be upset that we did not get Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Glover back. Like on the gaming preserve, to have those two live action characters all like beat the hell and just go and taking on Berserker Predators. That's a dynamic that I've always wanted to see, and that's why I was so excited to see Killer of Killers, and we get those nod to their past characters.
I'm so shocked by that. I'm not gonna lie. For you, of all people, to want to see them in live action, because I'm like, I thought I was being like, because I do want to see them in live action, but I'm like trying to be the responsible one here, being like, okay, let's not get them out there, let's get them in animation. But like,
Well, David Melanie didn't even get me to finish my thought. I was talking about Predators of 2010 and what I wanted from that film.
My bad.
Damn it.
I'll shut up.
Looking at this year, Dylan and I talked about it yesterday on the phone briefly, where it's like, I was so excited. We got Killer of Killers. Didn't know how that was gonna work out being an animated film, and I had to kind of come to terms with what they were offering there, and I absolutely loved it. And then getting Badlands here, it's like getting two films in 1 year is so exciting to be a Predator fan after so long of getting nothing. But having that crossover, seeing them in the animated version, I don't know necessarily if I need that crossover. I think you can get so much more mileage out of them being an animated version of themselves. You could create, so many different wide instances, create your own Killer of Killers franchise if you wanted to do that through Hulu, because I think that's a great avenue to go down and create even more of a property in franchise for Predator. So it's like, I don't know necessarily if I need that crossover into like the cinematic universe that we're doing, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I think maybe their best bet would be to keep them animated and then just kind of continue these interesting original stories like we've had. I know Prey was a Hulu release, but I think, if we're in the space now, clearly that would have been a theatrical release because of the quality of that film. You get Badlands being a theatrical release. And I think going forward, if you focus on, Prey 2 gets a theatrical release and you kind of just create these properties of creating these new characters that we can witness through cinema. And then you have these legacy characters continuing their legacy through the Hulu property of Killer of Killers. I think maybe that would be our best bet. I would love to see these them return. I just don't know if it's going to have that same dynamic. I think you maybe have missed the window, unfortunately, for them. I don't know what kind of shape Danny Glover's in. Last time that I had seen him, I think him and Mel Gibson were doing photo ops, and Danny Glover had to sit down for the majority of, that, so I don't have that much faith that he would able to return in a physical capacity. So if I'm being reserved in my take, I see it more logical for him just to do the voice acting. Same with Arnie. I don't know if they would return. 2010, I think, was the prime spot for them to return in cinema. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think just the more logical term would be them voice acting, concentrate on your more original properties through theatrically, and let a new audience or even returning audiences go through that ride with these characters thus far.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I want to hit on throughout this part, because like you brought up a lot of good stuff, Jake brought up a lot of good stuff, and I think like for me, where I'm sitting with the future of the Predator franchise, I think they've really done a good job, almost like right in front of our faces, but really I don't think anybody's talked about it, is just how like between the Hulu stuff and now this being theatrical, which this is probably going to be rather successful. I see word of mouth carrying this pretty good. But I think that like we are in a very interesting time where Predator has the potential, and I said this in the beginning of my review, to be the next big franchise property. And it's like, I know we're making the comparisons to, like Star Wars and everything, but like, I think the thing that they have that everybody's always criticized Marvel and Star Wars, and to some extent, DC's the only one to really do it, is like, we can have a brand here that has R-rated content and PG-13 content, and they can still play together. You know what I mean? Like this one being a little bit easier for kids, like, to come in. And I would say we're kind of, I think as a whole here, I think a lot of the Predator fans are very much playing on this PG-13 thing a little too heavy, because I still think there's a lot of decapitations. There's a lot of stuff. It's like, it's not necessarily like you're missing anything, I guess, other than human screams and gore and viscera of that extent. There's still a ton of it. But I think that like we are now living in an ecosystem that's very rare. It's kind of the one that I think a lot of people are chasing. And I don't know if they realize they have that yet. Because like we could have a lot of simultaneous things like Killer of Killers continuing the story of Dutch and everything via that story, and have some of that crossover into Badlands, have some of us go back to something like a Prey and see the direct events that follow up with Naru and the other predators that we see from that cave painting coming down. Like, what does that look like, Or again, we could just go back and tell other stories amongst different timelines. And I think like it's a gold mine. It truly is. And it's sitting on top of another gold mine, which is all the Dark Horse 90s comics lore that we're just now kind of getting into. I mean, the end of this movie, the post credit scene, establishes we're finally going to see at some point, whether it's Killer of Killers or a Badlands sequel, female predators for the first time, which has been a thing fans have wanted forever since they got introduced in the comics. Because it's like, yes, it's like we want to see the other sexes of the species. I want to see what the hierarchy of predators is. Like, that's what we need to do in the next film, is we need to establish what is the dynamic here of all these different clans and cultures. Like, how do we rank? Where are we at? That's what I think we need most.
Like, I feel like all these movies are connected, though. That's my big thing. Like, I feel like we've been setting it up since Prey, that this was all going to amalgamate into one big thing moving forward. I think that's probably the biggest, key in, is that ending of Badlands, that little tease. By the way, I heard from, there was a big article that came out earlier this week that was saying that there was going to be an Aliens tease in here, that there was nothing about an Aliens crossover at the end of this film. Dylan and I even waited until after the whole credits for something else about like a xenomorph popping on screen, or something dumb like that. I really thought we were gonna see something, but no, that article lied to me, and I'm still salty about that.
Yeah, I was curious. I've been popping into a couple of like spoiler reviews, or like people talking about things like in shorts after the theater, just because like I did also see that article, and like it was one of those things where I'm like, so admittedly I was staying away from spoilers, so I didn't read it, but I saw the headline, and it's one of those things where it's like, I like, what was that? Like, other than Waylon being in the movie, like Waylon Yutani is like, is that what they meant? Like, I don't know. It just seemed like I also went in there with the knowledge that we'd have some nod to like if not Romulus too, it's like something alien being like a xenomorph of some kind, or at least some confirmation. I thought initially what we were going to find out, and I think I said this to you, Jake, was when we saw those plants with the spines and stuff and how they had all the black gooey stuff. I was like, I thought we were going to find out that all the creatures on this planet had been affected by the black goo. And we were going to get
Yeah.
something like that, even if it was just like he finds a canister or something that fell from Romulus or something. It's like that would be kind of neat. But also, it's like we'd really get to see basically what Covenant tried to do, but we never got to explore the whole area there. We only saw a handful of things, but like having an entire planet that's been infected by that's not just xenomorphs, like that'd be cool.
Well, Dan Trachtenberg and him and Fede Alvarez have been kind of teasing that they want to do another Alien versus Predator. So like this doesn't feel like we're building to that though. This feels like we're building up to a big like Predator movie specifically. And I'm not against that at all. I think that's going to be awesome, but I do kind of want to see Dan Trachtenberg and Fede do some sort of AVP together. I mean, like I grew up with those movies, you know, are they great movies? I don't know about that, but I love them. You know what I mean? I would love a third one if we could make that happen.
You know, seeing Predator 2 on VHS regularly and then not having any new properties until AVP was going to be showing up, and that being a big deal on the message boards at the time. And I still enjoy that film. I think, you know, going back and rewatching it is always a fun time for me. I love the 3 Predators that show up at the very beginning. I was so pissed when they got disposed. 2 of them got disposed of rather quickly. And I absolutely want an expansion on the AVP universe. I think, you know, I was surprised at how heavy it does lean in Weyland-Yutani space for Badlands. I didn't know that was going to be such a heavy setting into the third act. I didn't expect that going in. I thought maybe we were just going to get, you know, Elle Fanning, Thea being the synthetic, and that's really as far as we were going to go into this. So I was really surprised with that dynamic. This does feel like some sort of connector piece to kind of get us steeped in, you know, AVP, to say, oh, you know, there is a connector piece here in the universe. So I don't know what that timeline is going to be. I fully expect us to get something AVP related down the line, just because both these franchises seem to be back on track and have a direct course in where they want to go with the storytelling. So as the way that Badlands has just opened up kind of a way bigger feel to Predator universe, and us getting Killer of Killers, us getting Prey, where Prey still feels like that intimate storytelling. That Killer of Killers just feels like its own unique thing, being animated, going across time periods, where Badlands feels like that way bigger story. And you really just see how lucrative the Predator franchise can be, and how it can really just intertwine with so many different modes of storytelling, I guess, where Dylan and I had talked about it. I think this film for Predator fans might be hard to reconcile to a certain extent, because it does feel so big. And one of the harder things to do, I feel like, if you start huge and then you strip everything away and tell a more intimate story, I think a lot of fans can recommend that and say, oh, it was great that they told a way more intimate story. But if you start with an intimate story like we've seen with the Predator, where it's just a predator versus another human being, and then we get this jump here, I think it's going to get some sort of critique, because it's gonna feel different. It's harder to go from intimate storytelling to bigger storytelling, because it's just going to feel different. I don't think you can get away from it. But I think Dan Trachtenberg has a great understanding of Yautja lore, and just the Predator franchise in general, that I think this has some rough spots in it, but it opened up the door to so many possibilities and put us on, I think it's going to feel even more natural to get an AVP down the line because of Badlands.
100%. Yeah. It was like that missing piece we needed to kind of, like, I think the big criticism, and I think I remember saying this around the time Romulus came out in one of our videos, where it was like, the Predator needs to catch up timeline wise. Like, we got to find a way to get that. And it's like Predator Badlands, when we found out it was going to be a futuristic Predator movie, I was like, perfect. Like, just drop us right in there and just say, all right, wherever Alien is right now, whatever that we're here. Okay. And that's where it can be. And I think that's the thing about it too, is we got to understand that as this moves forward, I know everybody's afraid of the PG-13 thing. Really, where I see this going, because Killer of Killers would have been the opportunity in my mind to be like, oh, we're going to take a sharper turn into trying to get more people, because that's streaming, and that's animated. So it's like one of those things where it's like, I have a 3-year-old, Luke has an almost 3-year-old. It's one of those things where it's like, it's literally just, it was a golden opportunity to basically be like, hey kids, here's not Terminator, here's Predator. And they went gory as hell. So I don't see this being the trajectory of like, we're going to continue to get PG-13 movies, maybe every once in a while, depending on, again, how big the story is. But I think what this movie has done, and if I trust Dan Trachtenberg, I think this is almost like them planting their flag in the box office and in the pop culture of 2025 and saying, hey, Predator is back. We are here. We got some plans. Pay attention to us. And I think that's what this movie's going to do. And hopefully it builds kids who are going to see this, who are, 8, 9, 10 years old, just like a group of boys and their cousins, whatever, going to see this, are going to now become Predator fans for life. They're going to go home and watch Prey. They're going to go home and watch Killer of Killers and start to realize, oh, wow, here we go. And I think we talked about it last night, Luke, and Jake, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. And I guess maybe just ask all of you. I think personally right now, if I had somebody who had never seen a Predator movie, I think I'd have them start with Predator Badlands. I think it's a perfect place to start. And then honestly, I'd say show them Prey and then Killer of Killers and then start from Predator 1. I think like just to really, because I think if you look at it, those 3 movies, Prey, Badlands, and Killer of Killers, they give you the best, like broadest painting of where this franchise is and where it can go.
Well, because I think that the original Predator, like the pieces are all there, and that's a classic. I love that movie, but I don't know if it gets into the lore of this alien as much as some of these movies do. And I think that to me is my biggest attraction to the character. The design is awesome. I think, wasn't it Jim Cameron that came up with the mandibles or whatever? I think that's like a weird Hollywood story. That's great. I love how creepy it looks, and I love the practical effects in the original. It's iconic. It's awesome. Arnold fighting that thing in the woods in the third act might be the best piece of this entire franchise. But yeah, if you want to like get into Predator, like some of the best movies to do that with are some of these later ones, just because it does dive a little deeper to that. Another point I'll throw out there about the PG-13 thing is I feel like it really works with this. Like they didn't need to make it R because we're not killing people. And like, that's the big thing I've heard the producers talk about with this movie. Like it's still brutal. We have some like, this movie starts off with a father chopping off his son's like head and arm. And I mean, this is a brutal movie, man. You are not going to be disappointed in those regards. I just think the only thing that turns me off from that, like if that was going to be a worry about doing PG-13, yeah, the humor again is just, I'm worried that we're going to fall too far into that moving forward. I think the Ghostbusters franchise is a great example of how we've kind of how that series has turned into something else from where it started. So don't lose that Predator flavor moving forward.
And I think that's going to be the important piece, because like to me, and I posed this question to myself and I held back from saying it, but I'll say it anyway. If we didn't know this was PG-13, would the humor have bothered you guys as much, you think?
No. Confidently no.
You think a lot more of it would have slid by? Like, just 'cause I know, Luke, you're a little more sensitive to humor, especially when it comes to a franchise that is near and dear to your heart, but also like a little bit more grounded with something like a Predator and Predator 2 and all that, and like Predators, where it's got that grit. So you think that it still would have stuck out like a sore thumb to you?
Oh, the humor would have been such a sticking point. It still is for me, just because, everyone has kind of one-liners in Predator franchise films, but I think this one being so continuous and seeing parallels that have been drawn, like I specifically bringing up the scene where they're all by the fire, things that we've been able to draw parallels with things like Marvel or Star Wars, where it just feels like you create a cute cuddly creature that tags along with everyone. And I was like, I don't know necessarily if I need this. Yeah. And I understand why they did it. It's appealing to a certain extent. It does give this a particular stamp, whether you're in it or not in it. But I think the comedy for me was so continuous. When you have the high-fiving her foot, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know necessarily if we need this to be happening at the very moment. It doesn't kill the film for me. It's just kind of something I have to reconcile with, where it's like, I know I'm going to go into this and it's going to be heavier comedy than what I'm used to. So I think, for me, PG-13 was a non-issue going to this. I understood why they were doing it. You guys talked about it. You get a fucking decapitation within the first 5 minutes of this film. It's like, I'm all for it. I don't think I would have placed such a heavy comedy in terms of opening up the scope of a film and making this feel bigger, and then injecting a lot of comedy throughout the film. I don't know necessarily if I would have done that. I like my stuff a little more serious. I'm fine with well-placed comedy, but when it's the montage of Deck carrying her at the very beginning, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. It's just like nonstop. They're kind of bombarding you. So I don't think just because it's PG-13, I had an issue with the comedy. I had an issue with the comedy in general.
I want to defend that one piece because I did like that led to him. We actually got to see him. I don't know. I just thought that was a nice character moment of seeing him just get fed up with it and then decide to build the backpack out of the vines. It just shows a little bit of his ingenuity. Because that's the thing that I think I like so much about Deck's story is that he's you use the term fighting from below a lot, Luke, where it's like he is somebody who mentally, he's been conditioned by his culture, by his brain, by his father, everything to be and that's what his brother was saw beyond, which is so cool. And why I think his brother is so important is because Deck was he's so structured to be he doesn't even notice that he just made this fucking backpack thing super simple, but to everybody else, that's very impressive that he was able to just string that together and everything. If you're looking at it from that perspective, it's I like that he has to build his confidence. And that's why I think at the end of the movie, it all comes together so well when he builds his own armor out of all the pieces that we've seen throughout the movie.
And I wasn't taking to task the idea of him carrying her around, more so her delivering this continuous dialogue. Because it led to one of my favorite moments, and I love just when you think about it, just obviously how in depth the character development is when he reconciles with himself. Yautja's, we hunt alone. I don't need anyone to help me. And then he goes, well, you're a tool. I can use you as a tool.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
The way that he carries her around and then just throws her up when he's trying to get up that rock and she just slams. I love that take of Deck of just using her as this tool continuously. That's a through line through the film, and that's kind of how he's able to come to terms with having help, but not really having help, because it's just like a shoulder cannon. He would use that. It's a tool for his defense. It's a tool for him to catch his trophy. He's using Thea just as that element. And it's I love that portion of it. I think that was so well done. I just did not like her continuously delivering the dialogue. I get that she's supposed to be annoying and that he doesn't want her around, but it was just kind of a continuous thing. Even when he does toss her, she goes, oh, I've never been thrown before. It's okay. Again, the film does a lot that I like. And then sometimes when something's misplaced like that, it's man, you were just so close.
Let me ask you, Jake, because I think this is one thing I know about Luke. I think the reason I accept, and I think I enjoyed some of that a little bit more, I think it's because I've played a lot of video games, and Luke does not play video games. And this feels like elements of God of War. If you've ever played the new one where it's you're carrying around, is it Eitri or whatever his name is? The head.
Yeah.
It's and he's just talking shit and making little quips and stuff. It's I think maybe I enjoy that. I get a sense of enjoyment out of that, and that doesn't bother me because I'm used to it from another form of media that we've clearly seen it already inspired Dan Trachtenberg already with Prey with the shield, where it was the shield was collapsible in God of War. He used it in Predator, and it creates some of the best moments. But I could see why those elements bother you, because to me it's I don't think about that. But I could see as you're explaining it, that makes sense why some audience members who are used to I guess the more traditional, more 2010 style kind of stuff, why it would bother them a little bit more to have that. To me, I think it just adds into that sci-fi fantasy element a little bit, which Predator's always kind of danced on the line of. I would say they've always been a little bit more horror and a little bit more gritty, rather than a little bit more 80s action movie, I guess I could say, rather than 80s sci-fi action movie. A little more of that than Star Wars. This one, they're totally taking a step towards the Star Wars stuff.
Well, that's what worries me, and I've kind of already hit on that. Is I'm worried that the studio, because this movie is going to be successful. I'm very confident about that. It's a PG-13 movie from a very big franchise. I think this is going to make some good money, and I'm worried the studio is going to look at that and say, "Oh, they want more, kind of gray slop from the gray slop factory. This is just going to be
Yeah.
like forced humor moving forward. That just it turns into Star Wars. It turns into like I hate to bring up Ghostbusters, but every Ghostbusters movie we've gotten has gotten more and more just corporate, and just we're making Marvel movies now. They're not even Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I never saw the latest one.
You don't need to. But my problem is like they're making Marvel movies now, and like it's completely lost the gist of what made that original Ghostbusters so great. It's this idea that we're treating this outrageous, super bright and insane world like it's something so mundane. Like that's the joke of the original Ghostbusters. There's none of that in Frozen Empire. There's none of that. There's a little bit of that in Afterlife, but I miss that flavor from the 80s movies, and we just don't have that in the modern day. We've just turned them into something that's a much more relatable to a wider group of people, and that's what I'm worried that this franchise could turn into if we keep going down that path. But I do agree. I think that the humor it works at times because it's sprinkled into the third act. It's only sprinkles, where that second act, it's a little too much. I like that we still have Deck being this character that represents his culture, like especially the sequence with the razor blade grass, and he's saying, "You give up too easily." There's the repetition of that line.
I love that line. I was like, hell
Excellent.
yeah. Like that's a Yautja thing where he's like, what do you mean? Like, we don't quit. We got to keep moving. Like,
we have to kill this thing. That's why we're here. What
we're
do you mean?
Hunting. This is great.
Yeah, right. And it's terrifying. Like, this is terrifying to me, but to him, this is just Tuesday. And I love that we did keep that consistent, even when that humor poked through. It's what I'm worried about for the future, though. Is are we going to lose that? That's like the best part of Predator. I love the culture. I love the code. I mean, it's why I love Batman. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different things about. There's so many different things we can pull from. Where it's like, because these characters have a code or a culture, a conduct, whatever, they have to do things a certain way. You can't see the Batman can't just kill the Joker, because he could and the story would be over. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with the Predator. He could just leave, but that's not who that character is. And I worry that in the future we stray too far from that. I don't think Dan Trachtenberg would do that. Like Luke said earlier, I think this guy has a very, very clear understanding of these characters, their background. But I worry, if this movie does very well, we put it in the hands of somebody else, it could fall into that.
I think if it switches hands from obviously Trachtenberg to anybody else in the next entry, then I'd be worried. But the other thing that I need to point out here too, and I only bring this up because I'm a viewer of John Campea and all that, so they were talking a little bit about this, so I think it's a good point to bring up is there's a gentleman behind the scenes here, Mark Toberoff. He's the executive producer, or I guess one of the major producers, the closest collaborator, I believe, to Dan Trachtenberg when it comes to like the money people. And he has, just so we kind of have a good idea here, he has produced, and he's got some stinkers, I'll admit, but he's got some good ones. He's done Piranha 3D. He did Prey, Hellraiser. I know Bad Boys Ride or Die, I've heard it's really good. Beetlejuice, Predator, Killer of Killers, Predator Badlands, and Prey was in there as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. But he is the one who's kind of also, I believe, calling some of the shots with the Predator universe. I believe he also is like associated with that IP right now. And from what I understand, from what Dan Trachtenberg said in interviews, is like he is extremely creative, like friendly, which is why they've been able to do this, because he was not a part of the Predator. So after the Predator flopped, it went back to them, and he's the one who put Dan Trachtenberg in charge and said, "Here, you have an idea, let's do it." So it's like that. He's the whole reason they were able to make it animated. It wasn't a problem. That this one was able to, not have humans in it. It wasn't a problem. So I think if you have this pair working together for the next few movies, at least on the Predator side of things, I think you're going to continue to see this creative like ebb and flow. And again, that's why I say this is rare. I think the Predator franchise is in such a rare position right now where they could be looked at in 5 years as being up there with like what we see Kings and Titans like Marvel and them falling to the wayside now. they could come up there. They could be something where every couple of years we have a really big swell of people who are excited to see more Yautjas, more Yautja Prime, more everything. We're at a very interesting point right now. It's exciting, but I also see the anxiety.
I love how ambitious this movie is, and that's something that is also something to be. It's something to be excited about and worried for, for the future. You can take a swing that misses, but I do. I like you said, I love seeing the planet. I love seeing all these different sides of these characters, and I just hope we can explore that more. And I hope the studio doesn't take the success of this movie the wrong way.
And damn it, can we just stay risky? We're always asking for risky things to happen, and we're doing it.
I think we're in such a unique position right now because you look at just the Predator trajectory, if you will, where it's like some people, we haven't had a good film since Predator 2. Some people, we haven't had a good film since Predator. For us, Predator 2010 was a great film. Coming up on Prey. Right now, honestly, we're in the ground floor of reigniting the Predator franchise, where it's we don't know where it's going to go. Prey was released on Hulu because it seemed like there was no real audience. There was no faith. Dan Trachtenberg loved the franchise, wanted to bring it back in some form, but it's like, hey, we get a Hulu release. We'll see how that goes. It did great, very widely received positively, so now we're in Killer of Killers, and the versatility of the franchise, it has a lot of versatility. Right now, this year, we got Badlands, we got Killer of Killers, both very unique in the franchise alone.
Two really great fucking Predator movies, though, in one year.
And to be honest, we're still very early on. As the Badlands takes off, makes a bunch of money, more hands are going to get in that pot. More, it's like, oh yeah, you have creative control right now of to where the Predator franchise is going to go. And it's like, well, Badlands, let's do more of that. Let's double down on what makes that work. Let's do less of Prey. I'm just being cautious, I guess, in terms of what they're going to do, because
absolutely,
it's one of those things where 2010 Predators was great. Shane Black's is pretty much a stain widely regarded on the franchise, and Prey was a sleeper hit. We were excited for it, but who knew how that was going to go? And now we're here with, I would say, 3 wins, strong wins in the franchise. So more eyes are going to get on this. More hands are going to get in that pod eventually as we go further along. We're going to have a miss eventually. I'm just hoping we're going to have the next few films are going to be big wins like these ones are. So I hope that they continue to expand, like Dylan said, stay risky with this, because there's so much you can do. There's so many different stories that you can tell. I would love a series. Like, hey, if Badlands was turned into a series and we got like a Mandalorian-esque, I think this would have been a lot of fun to continuously look forward to something if it's a weekly release. I think you can do that here. I think you can still tell those intimate stories that are going to please Predator 2 fans. I think that leaves a lot still on the table. I think we're still going to get those, but Badlands does kick open that door where it's like, hey, we've opened up the scope of the franchise. We can do it well. We can tell versatile stories, but then also maybe play it safe and give you some more vanilla storytelling. So I think this one is going to produce from a revenue standpoint. I think it's odd for us to look at something like Star Wars, look at Marvel and say, hey, Predator's kind of in the vicinity now. It's looked at almost like where it has that vibe to it. It could be a very lucrative franchise for a wider audience, not necessarily just adults that have grown up with it, because PG-13 does open up a lot of avenues for younger audiences to check this one out, grow a love for it. But then with that, it's like, oh, let's do some more of that storytelling. So I'm not against it. I think there's a place for it. I think Badlands shows that you can excel at it. And really, we're going to mention it again, that you've had decapitations in this film. And it feels like, you have the fun humor that is going to work for a lot of people. I think it works in spots for me. But then you also do have that kind of graphic stuff that people were hesitant about, that we weren't going to get. But you have some really awesome sequences of just random creatures being disposed of and being cut in half. And it's fantastic.
I think they need to really take this approach that we saw really well. I think, like, for, I don't know, it might be a little younger for you, Luke, but for Jake and I, our age group was Harry Potter grew up with us as far as tones and seriousness. And as things got darker, I think like right now that's the mentality they should have as far as like Deck's story is like, let's keep in mind that like if we don't see Deck again, or at least revisit this for another movie or two, or whatever the next project is between this and Alien, it's like let's just remember that the kids who are seeing this right now who are 9 and 10 are going to be 16, 17 by the time that comes out. You know what I mean? So it's like it's one of those things where it's like you gotta make sure that you stay age appropriate. And I think that's really the gamble here. That's where my biggest worry is too. I'm not gonna lie. It's like as much positivity as I'm trying to be and as much as an optimist I'm trying to look at with this, it is one of those things where yeah, it's like it very well could be, like I said, if Dan Trachtenberg or Mark Toberoff, if those two jump ship on the next project, it's like, oh fuck, we know we just lost, and now we're going to get the Predator Badlands 2.0 that's shitty, and it's going to suck. But you know, I also have to say that I think one of the encouraging sides to this is the fact that neither Fede Alvarez or Dan Trachtenberg want to say definitively, like they are hinting towards and saying like we're building towards AVP, but I like the idea that they are both saying let's play a little bit first. Let's really get the audience there. And it feels damn near very phase 1 Marvel right now. And that's kind of what I like. I know we're comparing that and we're saying we don't like things of that, but like the feeling of that feels really obtainable again for a franchise at this moment in time, where we could really be building up in 2-3 movies from now to a Infinity War Endgame style AVP movie where Dan Trachtenberg does part 1 and then Fede Alvarez does part 2, or you know, God forbid Damien Rubna does this Alien movie for real and it's fucking amazing and then he does it. Who knows? Like it's exciting.
That I'm down for, because I don't want to just see another AVP like what we got with the first one. You got to either make it bigger or something else entirely. So like, could we build up to it with like, let's say Badlands is some sort of precursor, as well as whatever Demian Rugna's his Alien movie is gonna be? Could these two flicks now collide into one big AVP flick moving forward, where you know Deck's there's xenomorphs, there's I don't know, characters from Fede's movie. I don't know, I don't know what the plan's gonna be, but I definitely think it shouldn't be the same exact thing that we just got. Not that we just got it, but it shouldn't be the same movie. I want to see something new.
You're telling me you don't want to see Deck and Andy stuck in some like fucking forest or jungle somewhere having to work together, where it's like Andy, his forced dad humor, and Deck just being so goddamn like illiterate, being like, you're a fucking tool. Like, we gotta do that. He's like, that's not very nice. He's like, what the fuck you mean? Do the thing. Like, I would love that. Like, that'd be amazing.
And, you know, looking at, like I said at the beginning of this, I was surprised going into Badlands that there was such a heavy human aesthetic with the synthetics and Wayland Yutani being a setting toward the third act and just having that strong influence. But it felt organic. It felt like when you look at a story that could be told, it didn't feel like they were like, we've got to clearly find a connector piece to throw it into the Alien franchise in that universe. It really did feel like, you know, they wanted to tell a Predator story with no human beings. And they kind of found a way around it with injecting a human element into it, but not really, and saying that is a Yautja story. And it does feel organic in terms of the threat and what we're getting. So I don't even know necessarily if we need to build up for like this, you know, we're going to see Deck in a crossover with the Alien franchise if we get an AVP thing. I think where we're going to go with both these franchises and where we're steering, because it feels like there's so much integrity in both these and in their storytelling, in their visions independently, is that we can have nods to the Predator franchise. We can have nods to the Alien franchise within each different franchise, that once they team up, even if it's a side character or a character we've never seen from the Predator universe crossing over into Alien, that it's going to feel organic. Be like, oh yeah, remember back when in Badlands they did this? Well, now they're kind of using a plot point or an element in this, even though it's an original character. And now it all feels cohesive. It all makes sense. And I feel like that's the vision that they're going to have. It's not necessarily going to be this team up of maybe familiar characters. We could get that, but I don't think we're going to get, you know, how we got, you know, Thor having his own story, Captain America, and then they all showing up taking on Thanos. I think this is going to be more so, it's going to feel so natural, a natural progression to get to AVP that it's going to be like, oh yeah, this could either feel like an Alien film, this could feel like a Predator film, because we've dabbled in the lore from both franchises, so it's never really going to feel out of place. It's just going to feel like that natural progression of the storytelling. Hell, we could even get, just because we're working toward an AVP doesn't mean, hey, we can't get a Predator release that year or an Alien release that year, because it's going to feel so organic in terms of its storytelling, but also independent.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of where we're at right now. We're kind of, I hate to say this, gentlemen, but I think we're at the best possible point right now. I'm happy. Just soak it up. God knows what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So everybody who's been sticking with us through this, I think like just soak up as much of your love of the Predator franchise, because we have not been this high in so long, and anything can topple it. So, I think that's something we gotta definitely take under our wing. I know we've talked a lot about the franchise as a whole in this, and it's not really a spoiler thing. So kind of to get us into the last thing, I want to say, tell me, each of yours, we'll start with you, Jake, since you're the guest. What is your favorite moment from Predator Badlands?
The opening and the end, I hate to just be so repetitive, but man, those sequences, just seeing the human emotions there. If you're not going to have people on screen, you still got to have some sort of relatability. And I think this movie immediately grabs you with that, with just something that feels so epic and so, tragic and powerful. I really do love it. It's easy to relate to these characters, even though they are aliens from a very, very far away planet. And to grip you like that, and to also have this like a very, somewhat epic conclusion. Did you say we're not talking spoilers here? I'm so sorry.
No, you are. I said like we've been talking spoilers, but we were talking like broader future installment stuff. We weren't talking as specific. So I was just saying like, what's a specific moment that you just loved?
Because I was like, I think I've definitely talked about the ending a few times. Oh,
yeah,
man.
No, you're good.
Whoops. No, but I love the beginning. I love the conclusion. I just think it's a great journey of a film, and I wish we had more, maybe even a little more of that sprinkled in.
Mm-hmm. Luke, yours?
I talked about, of course, we're going to love the beginning and the end. I think it's showing that Yautja lore, it's such strong. There's so many strong connector pieces that it can easily carry that dynamic throughout the entirety of the film. But also, I love as soon as Deck gets thrown onto this planet and being in the woods and, being attacked by, I'm not even sure what that monster is. That's just kind of hanging there. Yeah, the plant.
Vines.
I love that. I thought that was a lot of fun. Really just kind of gets you engrossed in what to expect, because these things are just coming down from the trees and you don't even, I love when they're sneaking up on them. I think that's when it's kind of that fun humor where you see it in the background and Deck is stalking it from the other way and then instantly spins around. That stuff works for me, where it's like kind of like comedy. It's the situational stuff. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I love just him when him taking on the Kalisk. I thought that was great. I think that's a great action sequence, really showing the potential where it feels Predator, but it also feels huge, and I think those are some of the best elements that they have. And then just one more, I love when Dylan, I don't know if this is going to be yours, so I apologize. I love when he's building everything, when it feels like, again, he's fighting from underneath and he has to go and just use the planet in its its vegetation. So yeah, those are my favorites. Dylan, you go ahead.
I'm just gonna say I was gonna say that at first, but then I have to be honest with myself here, and I know this is probably gonna be wisely unpopular. I'm gonna say the third act as a whole. I loved seeing him as soon as he falls out of the train or whatever that thing is, for the transport, and then we see him immediately like going back, and we start getting the idea. It's like, oh man, he's pulling a Dutch right now, like from Predator 1. They're doing that. It's like, I love that. And I know you said that like that's also a criticism that I totally see, where it's like, yeah, okay, now we're paying heavy homage to Predator and then Aliens with the robot fight and everything. But like, to me, I think the other thing that I just couldn't get out of my brain as I'm watching him storm this compound and take these people out, I had this like flashback of like the Lost World, when they go in and they start letting out all the like creatures and stuff, because that's like basically what they're doing. They're letting all the things out of the boxes, and I'm just like, this is so good. Like, this is amazing. And I loved just the idea of Deck like taking all the elements, the bison, everything, and making Predator armor. You know what I mean? That's so Yautja, that's so Predator in my opinion, where it's like you said, we don't give up. You give up too easy. It's like, we got to figure it out. This is what we do. We got a situation, we got a battle, we have a hunt, we got to see it through. And I think that just embodies the Predator motto and the mantra of this entire franchise. Deck is just stepping into this for the first time, trying to live up to his ancestral code but do it by any means necessary and get back and take his fucking dad's head. And I love it.
Well, and real quick to that point, I feel like a lot of people are going to come away from this one the same way they did with Romulus and call it fan service the movie because of that third act. And I think that's just so unfair because I totally agree. You know, like that whole ending fight sequences, it's wonderful. It's amazing. And we are turning it on its head. You know, this is a predator doing this. It's not a human being fighting up against who was once the monster in these movies. So I think they found a way to reinvent it. I love that third act too. But yeah, I can see people coming away with that criticism.
And the only like piece of it, and Luke and I talked about this last night, that I think I would have changed was, I don't know if I would have had the salamander thing as predominantly the shoulder cannon for as long. We were talking about it. I was like, what if it was like wrapped around his wrist and he was like shooting it out like Spider-Man or like a wrist gauntlet thing, and it starts spitting at things, and like right before it dies, it like went up on his shoulder, and we get the whole like maybe 2 or 3 kills real quick with the shoulder cannon, just so people could be like, oh, it's the shoulder cannon. Like, that would have been awesome. But, you know, hey, I see what he was doing. I think that was probably one of those moments where Dan Trachtenberg writers, everybody were just like, you know what? I earned this. Fuck you. I'm doing this. And it's like, hey, I respect it. You earned it.
Yeah, 100%. I loved the ending. I couldn't agree more. I think these are great picks. And I can't stress enough that I think this may be my favorite sequel. Warts and all. I just, again, I think what you were saying earlier about if there's any great way to get into the Predator franchise, this movie or Prey might be the greatest examples, because I think it does embody a lot of the things I love about the series. I love learning about these creatures, and I also just loved the intimacy of the hunt and prey. You know, I loved seeing these two, warriors duke it out. And I really hope to see Amber Midthunder again in one of these movies moving forward.
Yeah, just final thoughts then. For me, I would put Prey first, then this, then Killer of Killers. As far as like the new stuff, the new Predator stuff, that's where I'm going to sit with it. I think that like, yeah, starting with this right now for someone who's fresh, that's good to start with these. And then hopefully, I hope that they would go in and watch Predator and then move up all the way to Predators, and they'd have like an appreciation for all the lore and everything that we get to see, like seeing the stripped down back to basics version of the Predator. It's like, I don't think there's any way that movie's not entertaining to somebody. So I think it has that classic status. But Luke, where are you sitting?
For me, with the new stuff that we've come out with, Prey is my tip top. I think Killer of Killers edges this one out. Badlands comes in that third place just because of, I think Killer of Killers is such a variety pack of different stories that we get, where Badlands, it is a full-length feature. It opens up that scope. Like I said, I don't connect with this one in the way that I've connected with past films just because it is a bit bigger. But I think this is a great starting point to cover new ground. We're covering uncharted territory. And I think Dan Trachtenberg, this was a great first outing to say, look how expansive this universe can be. This is one that I think, Dylan, you're right on the money, where if someone hasn't been in the Predator franchise, this is a great starting point. I don't think I can recommend this if someone's seen the original Predator. It's like, what's next for me? I don't think I can recommend Badlands just because it is such a difference, but I'm excited for this one to be seen by a younger audience so we can create a lot more Predator fans. I'm excited that this franchise, we're talking about the possibilities of what could be next, because we know there's going to be a next step, where for so long it's been like, man, remember when a Predator film came out? Now we have nothing on the horizon. So what a change in terms of how lucrative this franchise is and going to be, because I think when you talk about merchandising and what everyone loves in terms of, like, man, you look at Deck, I'm already thinking of an action figure covered in that armor that he made.
NECA and Hot Toys already have you covered.
It's like,
oh, hell yeah.
So many fantastic things are going to come from this, and we're going to get that versatility in the franchise that you look at the Dark Horse comics, and we've barely scratched the surface with anything that we can really uncover with that. So I'm really excited where the storytelling is going to go. While this one's not going to be my favorite, this one, I can easily turn on. This one is just so rewatchable because I can come in and out of this film, and there are just so many great sequences that as we are going through what our favorites are, it's like, oh yeah, that was really well done, and that was really well done. So I'm excited to see what's next for the Predator franchise. I think this is another win. We're in three streaks now, so it's like what a place we're living in right now. So I'm excited to see what's going to be next. I love the versatility that this one brings. I'm really excited. I think this one was a big win.
It's been good. It's been good, gentlemen. It's awesome. Jake, let the folks know where they can find you, who you are a little bit. Just give the old outro.
Well, you stop on by the Killjoy Jake YouTube channel, especially if you like ice cream sundaes, because every time you subscribe, a pigeon comes to your window and brings you one. So it's worth it, in my opinion. So all you got to do is hit a little red button.
That's all. I keep subscribing and unsubscribing just because like sometimes I just forget to get ice cream at the store, and
the pigeon's really tired, by the way, Dylan. Yeah, so please stop doing that.
I don't fucking care. All right, he's gonna give me my goddamn ice cream. But yeah, thank you, man, for coming on and talking Predator with us. It's always great. Again, even like just got to point it out, like, because Luke had a thing come up literally last minute, so the fact that you were even able to just take some time out of your day and come see the movie with me, I appreciate it. It's always good to catch some screenings with your boy over there. So very blessed, very cool.
Thank you for the invite, man. I'm so glad I got to see this one early. It was a blast. So thank you. And going to that super cool theater, which I won't dox us and say, I'm always down for. So thank you.
Oh yeah. It's a good one. So definitely we'll get back there. But yeah, that's gonna wrap us up here, guys. So thank you for spending probably over an hour with us. Yeah, this has been great. It's been good. I'm excited to see what happens next with Predator. I think we all are. So hopefully, maybe this time next year we'll be talking about a trailer or something, or at least have some concrete news of where we'll be. So maybe we'll be looking forward to a new movie not too far off. So, well, other than that, that's going to wrap it up. So I'm Dylan Newell.
I'm Luke Chinesco.
And I'm Killjoy Jake.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horse shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live.